What is the stupidest way you almost died? I was in 2nd or 3rd grade. I was getting off the school bus and was walking around to the other side to my driveway. Suddenly the bus driver hits the horn. Scared the hell out of me, and I stopped at the edge of the front of a bus and a dump truck good speeding around. I don't know if the dump truck driver didn't see the lights of the bus or whatever, but that drive made a dumb mistake that could have cost me my life. Thinking about it, my older sister was up at our driveway waiting for me. Probably would have messed her up for life. After that the school district changed bus routes to avoid students having to cross the road to get on or off the bus. I didn't look before I crossed the street, walked backwards while talking to my friend, got hit by a van. I wasn't wearing my medic alert bracelet to warn the paramedics and hospital that I'm allergic to Demoral because it looks dumb and gets caught on my backpack. Besides, what are the chances I'd ever be given that? The chances, it turns out, are pretty good. If you get hit by a van going full speed hard enough to nearly rip your foot off at the ankle. I survived 7 surgeries to patch me back up, was comatose for a little bit, had some blood transfusions, massive amounts of physiotherapy. Look both ways and wear your medic alerts, folks. God, I completely effing forgot. When I was like 14 or 15 I found out about Breathe Play from some dumb adult comedy show we shouldn't have been watching. I was curious and dumb, so when I went to bed that night I stuck my head inside my pillowcase with the pillow over my face and tied it on tightly with a bathrobe cord. Of course my dumb little effing idiot self couldn't get it untied again. I freaked out and was just going nuts, pulling on any random bit of cord I could get my fingers into, trying to pull the pillow off. But all I was doing was compressing the knots down tighter. I remember feeling really dizzy and rapidly seesawing between desperately sucking in hot wet breaths of carbon dioxide and then just going completely still and feeling like I didn't need to breathe anymore, like I could just lie there peacefully, then suddenly going back to gasping for air again. Somehow I eventually wiggled enough slack out of the cord to be able to get one of the loops up over my chin so I could pull the pillow away from my mouth. And all I could do for a few minutes was just lay there and breathe. I will never forget how cold and wonderful that first breath of proper air was. Effing dumb little When I was a kid, I dipped my toes into a flooded creek to see how it felt. Proceeded to get sucked into said creek and nearly washed away. Thankfully, the creek had some overgrown areas and I was able to cling to a tree in the middle of the floodwater and scream for help. This happened directly behind my house. So my dog heard me, alerted my dad, and my dad managed to rescue me. What makes this extra stupid was that I was trying to prevent my friend at the time from doing the same thing. He wanted to surf down the creek on a snow sled. I was following him, telling him it was a bad idea, and then like a dumbass, I ended up in the creek instead. He also gave me shit afterwards for ruining his stunt. Kids are effing stupid, I guess. I was riding my bike to either the school or the supermarket. I can't remember. I was maybe like 12 over 13 years old. In my town you can't really ride a bike on the street, so I had to use the sidewalk. On my way I had to ride across a bus stop with a ton of people just blocking the way for me and my bike, so I decided to hop onto the street and up onto the sidewalk again later. Those people were blocking my view, so I didn't see a bus coming my way. I just barely hopped onto the sidewalk and the bus missed me by a few centimeters. After that, I didn't really understand what happened. A few hours later it hit me that this could have ended rather bad for me. I waited over a week with stomach pains in college, thinking it was gas or something. Got so bad I couldn't sleep, but still waited all night to go to urgent care. When they opened the next morning, instead of going to the ER, they told me it was my appendix and asked if I wanted an ambulance. I didn't want to cause a scene and elected to drive to the ER. Got to the ER and vomited in their trash can. Was in surgery within 20 minutes. Was in the hospital for 2 weeks with an NG tube and catheter. Everyone said I almost died. My homies autistic brother was in the deep end of a wave pool. He can't swim without floaties, so he called for help and I jumped in. As I was trying to swim with one hand and carry him with the other, I heard the siren for the big wave that happens every few minutes, so I tried to quickly swim away, but it caught up and pushed us under. I accidentally tried to breathe, and that put quite a bit of water in me. Just then I felt someone grab me and pull me out of the water. It was my homie, and he also grabbed his brother. So after I threw up a bunch of water and rested a bit, I realized that I almost died in a wave pool. Got super baked, like super. So stupid baked I could barely move. I don't know what was in that joint, but it was definitely more than weed. I was in the backseat of a car with Roland. In the front seat was another friend. Driving, at night. Car broke down on a dark, single lane road. Smack dab in the middle of the roadway. We're at a dead stop on a truck route, and it's pitch black out. Through the back window we see headlights approaching quickly. It's a semi and he can't see us because car is dead. No lights and it's really dark out. Headlights are much bigger now, and the truck has seen us. Driver is blowing his air horn. Looks like we are gonna get hit. The driver of the car quickly exits the car, running. I'm watching the headlights approaching, mesmerized at how bright they are, paralyzed by the beauty. Roland, sitting next to me, must be doing the same, because he's also frozen. God was looking out for stoners that night, because the truck managed to go around us at a high rate of speed, the air horn blowing, Doppler effect in effect. Our friend who was driving comes back to the car and berates us. Why the hell didn't you get out? That broke the spell. But I didn't know how to answer. In my early teens a bunch of us kids would get super stoned and boogie board down the local river. The river was probably a class 3 at its now least and an easy class 2 for the majority of the float. Well anyways, the first time we went down the river a massive maple, a strainer, had uprooted and fallen directly perpendicular into the river. It looked super cool, so my plan was to paddle over to the crown of it and climb atop it. When I got close, well anyways I missed my mark and headed towards the trunk instead. The water was much too deep to do any jumping, and the speed had picked up around the tree. I crashed into the trunk and my body was pinned directly under the trunk. I remember being able to reach my hands out of water and could see the water line, but physically could not unpin my body. Luckily my friend was a ways back and saw everything. He successfully jumped atop the crown, ran down the trunk to where my arms were flailing out of the water, and pulled my body up and over. We both crashed into the water on the other side and he paddled us to shore. I almost choked to death on Skittles. I shared this before, but when I was like 11 years old I was home alone one day during the summer, just watching TV, while eating Skittles. I like to put a bunch in my mouth and make like a Skittle ball that I would chew on. Something on the show I was watching made me laugh, and I swallowed the ball, which got lodged in my throat. I then experienced a few seconds of sheer terror, because I realized that there was nobody here to help me at all, and I was probably gonna die. Thankfully, I remembered some cartoon or movie where someone jammed their stomach on a chair and got something and stuck from their throat. So, I lunged at the corner of the recliner as hard as I could with my stomach and it actually worked, and popped the small ball out. It was super lucky, because I really had no idea what I was doing, but one of the worst feelings I have ever experienced. Definitely never ate Skittles that way again after that, and to this day I'm still a bit paranoid about eating certain things when alone. When I was a teenager I developed a horrible, sharp pain in my lower abdomen that seemed to move from one area to another. I had no idea what it was. My parents didn't know. My mom, who is very anti-doctor, anti-medicine, etc., eventually decided it was probably just gas pains, and it would eventually go away. Nearly a week later I was still in pain, and it was getting much worse. Painkillers did nothing to help. My mom kept saying it was probably nothing. My brother eventually screamed at her to take me to the ER to get it looked at. She took me to my old pediatrician instead, lol. And he too didn't know what was wrong, but guessed at an ovarian cyst. He spent a long time trying to convince my mom to take me to the ER, and finally she agreed, and off we went. I go in, get examined and sprayed and whatnot. Then, all of a sudden I was getting rushed into surgery to get my appendix removed. My appendix had, long before then, developed a stone, and had gotten gangrenous and slowly ruptured. I apparently didn't have the typical symptoms of appendicitis, so no one had guessed it was that. If my mom had waited much longer for my pain to magically vanish instead of getting over herself and just taking me to the hospital, I would have died.